Let me present. Okay, nakikita ba yung presentation?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let's continue our discussion on the form, function, and ontogeny on fishes. So we already discussed the skeletal system of the fish, which is basically divided into appendicular and eggshell. So this time, we'll be discussing integumentary skeleton. Okay? So bakit integumentary skeleton? So if you talk about skeleton, it is a framework. Okay? It is a framework. It is a structure, support. Okay? The integumentary system of the fish also function somewhat similar with the skeletal system of a fish. Fish integument. Okay? So what is the role or function of the integument of a fish? One function of the integument is for protection. Okay? One of the function of the integumentary system is for protection. Second, communication and sensory perception. Third, locomotion. Okay? Fourth, respiration, ion regulation, and excretion. Yes. Similar to other vertebrates, the skin of the fish provide an avenue for excretion of waste. Okay? The fish integument separates and protects the fish from its environment. It also provides means through which contact with environment are made. Communication and sensory perception. They can determine the flow of water or yung tinatawag natin na water current, the direction, the presence of a predator through their skin. Okay? The fish integument is continuous with lining of all body opening, including the fins. Okay? Including the fins. It is covered with skin. The fish forms follows a function. Forms follow a function. There are more than 33,000 fish species identified, and the structure of the integument of each species is highly adapted to carry out various functions. I repeat, structure of integument of each species is highly adapted to carry out various functions. Depende sa species, depende sa kanilang environment, depende sa kanilang tinatawag na niche or role sa environment, sa ecosystem. Okay? So yan. Adaptation vary widely among species, but some structural similarities. Adaptation widely among species. Iba-ibang species, iba-ibang form of adaptation, but generally, the structure are similar. And even similar with terrestrial vertebrates. Ang skin is divided into epidermis and dermis. Okay? So yan. General fish skin structure. The fish skin consists of two basic layers, the epidermis and the dermis. As in other vertebrates, ganun pa din. Divided into dermis and epidermis. So yan. This is the basic structure of the fish skin. Okay? As you can see here, the scale originated from the dermis. Okay? The scale originated from the dermis. Hindi siya sa epidermis. Unlike in terrestrial vertebrates. One of the major difference of fish skin is that the epidermis is metabolically active. Unlike in terrestrial, na yung upper layer, yung tinatawag natin na stratum corneum, which is dead sa terrestrial vertebrates. Sa fish, walang stratum corneum, all of the layer of the epidermis is active, alive. Okay? Yan. So this is a typical division of fish integument. Lamprey skin. Okay? The epidermis, which is thick. You can see epithelial cells, skin cells, basement membrane, yan, granular cells. Okay? Dermis. Ito. Kung makikita nyo, sa scaleless fish, like the lamprey, hagfishes, wala silang scale. So you cannot see here the scale. Unlike kanina, ito, the general. Okay, this is the scale originated from the dermis. Okay? Ito yung skin ng scaled na isda. As you can see here, this is the presence of the scale. Ito, na dark red na to. Okay? It originates from the dermis. The epidermis is wrapped around the scale. The scales is wrapped by a loose connective tissue of the dermis. While the dermis of a scaled fish, yung mga ostiches, they possess a dense connective tissue. Okay? So let's talk about the epidermis. So epidermal thickness varies by species and body region and can also vary by age and sex. Unlike what I mentioned before, that the epidermis of fish are alive, metabolically active. Hindi kagaya ng terrestrial vertebrates na yung upper layer niya ng epidermis is dead. Okay? Keratinized. Yan. Surface cells is sloughed off when dead and replenished from lower cells. And another thing is, the epidermis is separated from dermis by an acellular basement membrane known as the basal lamina. Okay? Basal lamina. It is a thin layer. Okay? Thin layer that separate the epidermis from the dermis. So makikita nyo ito, this is the epidermis, this is the dermis. Ito yung basal lamina. This one. Okay? Ganon din dito. Yan. Yung white na yan. That is the basal lamina. Ito. Okay? So, the basic cellular elements of fish epidermis are known as, it is also known as Malpighian cells, epidermal cells, filament containing cell, principal cell, keratinocytes, polygonal cells, mucous cells sa mga jawless fishes. Okay? Yan yung term na ginagamit for epithelial cells. Now, as I mentioned, epithelial cells are metabolically active. Okay? Metabolically active because it is capable of mitotic division in all layers in teleost, but not jawless fishes. In all layers. Okay? Capable of mitotic division. All throughout the life of the fish, it divides. Okay? Generally, it is smaller than most other epidermal cell types. Now, because it is metabolically active, it is the key element in wound repair. Okay? It is the key element in wound repair via rapid migration from the wound edge. Healing. Okay? Epithelial cells. And also, it is capable of phagocytic activity. So, third year na kamo, there's no need for me to explain what is a phagocytic activity. Phagocytes. Okay? I'm sure na-discuss na yan sa lower biology nyo. Okay? The phagocytes. So the shape of the cell varies by location. It varies by location. Basal cells, usually cuboidal to columnar. While yung surface, squamous, flattened. Okay? Squamous cell. So the shape of the nucleus is roughly correspond to the shape of the cell. So makikita nyo, itong dark na to, and that's the nucleus. Okay. The epithelial cells, if you look at the surface of the fish, ito example, ito is from a salmon. Microridge or micropapillae on exterior surface of telosed superficial epithelial cells. Pag yung isda, okay, pag yung isda, tinanggal nyo yung slime layer niya, okay, hinugasan siya, sabihin natin ng acid, na wash out yung mucus. You can see ridges, ganito. Okay? It is known as micro ridges. The micro ridges is an important important feature of the epithelial cells because of this reason. It holds mucus secretion on the surface. It holds mucus secretion. It can also provide mechanical protection against trauma. And it increases absorptive surface area of the skin. It increases absorptive area of the skin. So therefore, these microridges, in general, it provide protection basically from dehydration and trauma. Because of these ridges, yung fluid nare-retain. Okay? Compared kung ang surface niya is smooth. Okay? Can you follow?
Yes po, sir.
Okay, thank you. Kala ko wala na akong kausap. So yan. Mucous cuticle. So mucus secretion produced largely by the epithelial cells in most species form protective cuticle on the skin surface. Secretion in cuticle mixed with and modified by secretion from other secretory cell types. So the purpose is avoidance of mechanical damage. Avoidance of mechanical damage. Yan yung pinaka main function of mucous cuticle. Similar din sa atin. Ang cuticle, it acts as a protection for mechanical damage sa buhok para maiwasan yung split ends, para maiwasan yung pagka-dry, pagkaputol, cuticle. Okay? Sa surface ng nail, ng kuko natin. Cuticle. Okay? So yan. So the cuticle is continuously sloughed off and renewed to help keep surface clear of debris and bacteria. Okay? Usually, ang mucous cuticle, meron siyang thickness of less than 1 to 50 micrometer ang thickness niya. And the body may be affected by other factors such as the environment. Thickness ng cuticle is affected by the environment. So kung titingnan nyo to, etong nasa upper part, letter A, it is the skin surface without a fixation to preserve the cuticle. So kumbaga kung makikita nyo, yung mga microridges, okay? Mga microridges. Yung sa baba, skin surface with cuticle preserved in agglutaralaldehyde Alcian blue fixative. So the cuticle is already removed. Na-damage na siya. Okay? Mucous cuticle. We also have yung tinatawag natin na mucous goblet cell. A mucous goblet cell, it is a unicellular exocrine gland. Okay? Exocrine gland common to most animal group. It is reported in most fishes, including the jawless fish, like the hagfish, coelacanths, sharks, skates, and rays, relic bony fishes, the lungfish, and most of the teleost. Teleost or yung mga spiny rayed fishes. Unicellular exocrine. Siguro na-discuss nyo naman yung ano ang exocrine gland. Okay? Ano ang exocrine? Any idea? What is an exocrine gland? Any idea? What is an exocrine gland? Ha? What is an exocrine gland? Miss Kylie Nicole. Wait lang, Mr. Mape. So what is an exocrine gland?
Hello. Good morning po, sir.
Yes, good morning.
They secrete substances.
Okay, they secrete substances. So what's the difference between exocrine and endocrine? Lagi niyong naririnig endocrine gland. Pituitary gland, ano pa, thyroid gland, adrenal gland. Those are endocrine. How about exocrine? Sabi ni Miss yan, ni Frank Lee, pag sinabi daw na endocrine, is ductless. Okay? Ductless daw pag endocrine. Okay. Direct sa bloodstream yung hormone na nasisekrete. Or yung secretion niya is directly transferred to the bloodstream. Okay? Yes, Mr. Mape. What else you can add? Pag exocrine, therefore, what? Mr. Mape.
Yung idea ko lang po, sir, kapag po exocrine, these are the exocrine glands. These are the glands na nagsisecrete po ng substances. Katulad po sa human, example is the sweat gland po.
So, what can you deduce by the example na yung endocrine gland, example is pituitary, while yung exocrine, yung sweat gland? Ano ang ma-analyze nyo, madideduce nyo na pag sinabing exocrine? Na-mention kanina ni Miss Franklin na ductless. The secretion is directly flush or excreted sa bloodstream. So basically, pag sinabi nating exocrine, the secretion is eliminated or eliminated through a hollow cavity. Hollow cavity. Like yung sweat gland outside. Okay? Not directly to the bloodstream. So in the case of the mucous goblet cell, which is considered exocrine, the mucus, which is secreted by the goblet cell, is directly emptied to the surface of the skin. Kaya yung mucus can readily be makakapa nyo sa isda, yung slime layer. That's the mucus. The mucus secreted by a goblet cell is it's an exocrine gland, unicellular. Okay? Exocrine. It is emptied in a hollow cavity in the surface sa case ng mucous goblet cell. Take note, unicellular. It's not an organ. Okay? It's not an organ. Okay. So a goblet cell is reported absent from a jawless fish like the lamprey. What they have is only a mucus cells, mucus gland. Okay? Absent din sila sa mga bony fishes like the paddlefish. Ito yung mga group of fish that are primitive. Okay? Sa teleost fish like the mud skipper. Wala silang mucous goblet cell. So most frequently recognized in the middle to outer layer of the epidermis, ang mucous goblet cell. It may differentiate from epithelial cells in the lower epidermis. So differentiated goblet cells do not undergo further mitotic division. Once it already differentiated, hindi na sila nag-undergo ng mitotic division. Differentiated. Ano yung pag sinabi nating differentiated cell, what does it mean? Differentiated. Ano pag sinabi nating differentiated cells? What do we mean by differentiated cells? Ms. Gibara. So what do we mean by differentiated cells? Differentiated. Yes, Ms. Gibara?
Pag nagbabago po yung cell to another cell.
Pagbabago? Pagbabago due to what? Differentiation. So when we say differentiated cells, okay, sabi ni Miss Gulpan, when a cell changes from one form to another, okay? So basically, okay, sabi ni Miss Bolaños, cells that perform unique function. So when a cell differentiate, it undergo a change to perform a specific or unique function. So based on this, it shows that the mucous goblet cell differentiate from epithelial cells. The undifferentiated epithelial cells undergo changes from its original function like protection, yung squamous cells, okay? Surface covering. The squamous cells undergo differentiation. It is an epithelial cells. It differentiated into mucous goblet cell. It is highly specialized. It performs a specific function. Usually, isa lang na function. Okay? Yan. So, goblet cells may enlarge as it moves towards the epidermal surface. And the numbers of secretory vesicles increase. So, nucleus and organelles often become displaced. Ito, kung makikita nyo dito sa salmon, this is the goblet cell. So, yan. Okay? This is the goblet cell. Kung makikita nyo, it is enlarged and it occupies large surface area of the epidermis. Ito yung mga epithelial cells. So, itong, yan. Okay? That's the epithelial cells. Ito yung parang nucleus niya. Okay? Yan. So, goblet cell secretion, it secretes mucus, glycoprotein, and other component depending on the species. And mostly are basophilic. Basophilic siya pag in-stain nyo, makikita nyo siya by using a weak basophilic stain like H&E. Okay? Yan. Okay. The club cell. A club cell is a secretory cell characteristic of certain taxa of ray fin actinopterygian fishes, which is present in mga relic bony fishes like the paddlefish. Okay? Sa mga eels, Anguilliformis, yung sa Bicol baga, yung tigapuntang kasili. Okay? Sa moray eel, or fishes of superorder Ostariophysi. Ito yung mga Ostariophysians. Sila yung mostly, these are freshwater. Okay, yan. Contains nearly 25% of all known fish species belong to the superorder Ostariophysians, and 75% of all the species are freshwater club cell. Ano ang role? Ano yung role or function ng club cell? Okay. The characteristic of a club cell, it is usually large and round to oval or club shape with 1 to 2 centrally located nuclei with a prominent nucleoli. Okay. So, dito sa picture na to, makikita nyo, this is the club cell. Ito. Yan. Okay? So, yan. So, generally, in the middle layers of the epidermis, no opening to the epidermal surface. No opening to the epidermal surface. So, in eels, it has a cytoplasmic secretory vacuoles. Secretory vacuoles. Ito, kung makikita nyo itong white na to, na nasa arrowhead, yung bilog na yan, na puti, that is the secretory vacuoles. Okay? So ano ang role or function ng Ostariophysians club cells? So it contains alarm pheromone. It contains alarm pheromone that is released into the water when epidermis is damaged. So pag na-damage yung epidermis ng Ostariophysan fish, the club cells release a pheromone sa water. The release of this pheromone triggered when detected by other fish of the same species. It performed an species-specific anti-predatory defensive behavior. It acts as a signal. Di ba sabi natin, ang integument act as a receptor. Okay? It act as a receptor. So yan. As a receptor, in Ostariophysan's club cells, when this pheromone is released as a result of the damaged epidermis caused by a predator, it sends a signal. A pheromone is a signal. It is a secretion. Okay? It acts as a signal to other fish of the same species. It acts as a signal. Garuman sa nabagayan sa tapos na ka mo ng cell and molecular biology.
Tinitake pa lang po.
Tinitake nyo pa lang. Kay Sir RR. Tama?
Opo.
Okay. Sa case ng viral infection, okay? Sa case ng viral infection, once a cell is infected by a virus, di ba? Naririnig nyo ngayon yung coronavirus. The mode of infection ng virus is not similar to bacteria. Ng bacteria, i-invade niya yung cell. Papasok siya. Yung bacteria mismo ang papasok sa loob. Sa case ng virus, madak lang yung virus, dun lang siya sa surface. Then, i-inject niya yung kanyang genetic material. The genetic material may be in the form of an RNA, sa case ng mga retrovirus, and DNA sa other virus. Okay? I-inject lang nila is only the genetic material. And this genetic material will be incorporated sa genetic material ng host cell. Then, the host cell, yung kanyang mechanism is already hacked. Yung genetic material na ng virus ang ma-overcome or parang yung hostage niya, siya na yung ma-manipulate. So instead na yung cell magpo-produce ng protein or other substance needed by the host cell to grow, to reproduce, ang gagawin niya na yung viral component. Na yung information na yun na nandoon sa genetic material ng virus na in-insert. Okay? So once na naka-insert na siya, ma-produce na siya kay viral component. Then sa loob na kang host cell, i-assemble na yung viral component para makaproduce na kay virus. I-assemble na dun sa loob. Then, yung host cell, pag nakulo ng virus duman, mararaptured siya. Now, pag na-ruptured siya, na-release siya kay substance, yung damaged host cell, na-release kitigapod na interferon. The interferon, madidetect yun na kang mga healthy cells. Madidetect siya kang healthy cells na ang magiging action kang healthy cells is to alter the surface of the cell ng probable host. Pag na-altered na siya, yung mga virus, hindi na siya makakapag-dock. Pag hindi siya nakapag-dock, hindi siya makakapag-insert ng kanyang genetic material, therefore, walang infection. The Ostariophysan club cell produce a pheromone similar to that trigger anti-predatory response sa mga other fish of the same species. Kumbaga, nagiging aware sinda that in the vicinity, there is a predator. Take note na most of these Ostariophyans species or member of the Ostariophysan superorder are freshwater. Freshwater, usually ang environment is murky. Murky. Malabog yung tubig. So therefore, the sense of eyesight is not functional. Most are insensitive. So they rely on the receptor on their skin. And one of these is the receptor that receive the pheromone signal from osteophysan club cells. Okay? So yan. So club cells may be lost during spawning season in species with abrasive spawning behavior. Ito yung during spawning, nagkikiskisa ng body. Unlike ng iba na they just broadcast their egg and they broadcast their sperm sa water, then they allow nature to facilitate the fertilization. While sa ibang species, kailangan muna nila magkiskisan para mai-release yung kanilang sperm and egg cell. And the club cells may be lost during this process of spawning. That's why some species, like this fathead minnow, during spawning season, they are vulnerable to predation because they lost their osteophysan club cells because of abrasion. Okay? Can you follow?
Yes po.
Yes po.
Okay. The club cell products may have an additional function. Aside from it act as a pheromone, as a signal to detect predator, it it have an additional function such as in eel and polypterids club cells, hindi involve yung as an alarm, but a bioactive substance identified in the club cell suggests other function in osteophysan and non-osteophysan cells, like toxin. Toxin. Antipathogenic agent. Okay? Ayan. Antipathogenic agent. Specific factors that may be involved in epidermal cell regulation. So these are other function of club cells. Not just in osteophysans, but to other group of fish that have club cells. Okay? So other epidermal cells. We have the serocells, which is basally located nucleus, which appear when it is stained using an acid, acidophilic stain. Okay, like eosine. So there are two types of serocells. We have a serous goblet cells, which is reported in some bony fishes. Okay? The second one is Sachiforms cells. So what is a serous goblet cells? So usually it is less numerous than mucous goblet cells in the species that have them. Okay? less numerous compared to mucous goblet cells. It is a vesicles contain basic protein. So, increase in number of goblet cells, yan, increase in numbers of goblet cells is often associated with skin irritation. It is often associated with skin irritation. While saciform cells, most mature cells open at skin surface by apical pore, but some do not open at the epidermal surface. So ano ang function ng saciform cells? Sabi that saciform cells it act as a toxic repellent. Regulatory peptides. Ito pala. Okay. Possible function are predominantly proteinaceous secretion, toxic, or repellent substance. Basically, ang saciform cells for protection. Regulatory peptides or alarm pheromones. Similar with the Ostariophysan's club cells. Okay? So what are the other epidermal cells? Example, we have ionocytes, from the word ion, ion regulation in the body of the fish, especially sa mga marine fishes, regulation of salt. Okay? Paano nila ini-excrete? Okay? Epithelial sensory organ and supporting cells, solitary sensory cells, like the neuromast, which is a mechanoreceptor, taste bud, chemoreceptor, okay? Paraneural cells, or the Merkel cells. It is a receptosensory cells that release signal substance. We have a luminescent organs, yung tinatawag natin na photopores. It contains self-luminous cells, yung mga bioluminescent like luciferin, or symbiotic luminous bacteria. Okay, among other epidermal cells. Then we have the venom cells and supporting cells. From the word venom, venom gland is often associated with spine. Like sa mga scorpion fish, sa lionfish, so yan. Family Scorpionidae. Sa lionfish, Ferois antenata, so yan. So other epidermal cells, familiar naman kamo, leukocytes, increase abundance during healing of the skin injury, exposure to infectious agent or other stressor. Dendritic cell, the Langerhans cells, which is an antigen presenting cell. Pero familiar naman kamo ka ng antigen. What is an antigen? Okay? Rodlet cells, the rodlet cells, it is a pear-shaped fibrillar capsule beneath the plasma membrane. Okay? It is a membrane-bound cytoplasmic vesicles. Ang function niya, defensive. Often, more numerous in fish exposed to a damage by parasite or other insults or trauma. Okay? Yan. So, since 9:30 na, may klase pa kamo. So, we'll just continue this one, including the other specialized epiderm. Next, wait. Okay. So, we'll continue the discussion. Epidermis pa lang tayo. Then, we go to the dermis and the specialized component of the integumentary system like the chromatophores and the scale. Okay? May klase pa kaya akong 9:30. Okay ba?
Okay po,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay po.
Okay po.
Okay. Sige. So you may now leave the meeting.
Yes, sir.
Thank you
Thank
po.
you po,
By
sir.
the way,
Thank you po,
kumusta
sir.
pala yung activity nyo? Nagpo-progress ba or hindi?
Nagpo-progress po, sir.
Okay, sige. Okay, sige na. You may now leave the group.